I have only just begun.
If you feel the need to prove yourself again, the fight will always be waiting. Here.
As usual, just pause the video as I hover through everything I'm using for this build now. I tweaked it yet again a little bit. Also, yeah, apparently Berserk and Groundbreaker is what allowed me to just almost, like suddenly one-shot the boss later on. I'm like, that fight usually would take 3 times longer, I think. Which, I mean, when I first fought him, it took me like probably 10 minutes to kill him. On a melee pure tank build like this, yeah, like boss damage has always been its biggest weakness. But now I'm like, wait, that was the first time I actually did it on him, but then I realized, oh, it's because I never lost my Berserk thanks to the melee chance. I think there's instances where I would lose it and have to restack it later. And that would definitely extend the fight, like, just double or triple just because of that, and that's what usually would happen. But that fight, I actually maintained the Berserk stack, and so that's what allowed me to just eventually get to the point of one-shotting him with Groundbreaker, using all of that stack damage from Berserk, too. It's totally broken, honestly. Some of it you can see with me just suddenly, like, one-shotting, you know, bad arse enemies with tons of modifiers on them too, sometimes. Like strong variants of bad arses too, not even just normal ones, but like the elite of the elite enemies, and then I still sometimes one-shot them too, where usually it would take me a time to kill them as well. Which honestly I don't really care about, because this guy is a pure invincible tank is what he is. Like, I could just, as I've done before, testing his tankiness on that specific boss, I've gone to the 3rd phase of that boss and just sat there next to him while he just unleashes everything. And I don't have to do anything. I can just stand there. I mean, I could just, as long as I'm just tapping the button on my controller to keep using my rep kit so my onslaughter stays active, I could just mosey about the rest of my day, you know, watching a show, I don't know, like reading a book. I could put it on mute and just like read a book and just every few seconds I'm like, all right, use my thumb or whatever to press the button, or just get some automated like robot or something to do it for me and just sit there and be invincible if I wanted to. Yes, that is almost every fight in this game. There's a few exceptions, which is why he has the thrill. That's why I added the thrill back to him, because I was like helping my friend get through, I remember, UVH3, unlocking UVH3 when you have to fight Vile Lictor at the end. And Vile Lictor, and remember, this is also on UVH2, so it's even on a lower difficulty. And his like ultimate ability would just always take me to low health from full armor and health. I'm convinced, like, I've noticed a lot of bosses do that. I'm convinced that they just have some sort of percentage nonsense where they just always take a player, basically, no matter what their build, what their armor or rating or anything like that is. They just take them to red health, basically, to low health. And that's why I realized, yeah, with stuff like that in the game, I want the thrill back, combined with the rep kits, to really stack up health regen that way. So not only do I have a crap load of armor and armor regen, but now I also have a decent amount of health boosts from the tree, and then also a huge amount of health regen too. I even tested like fighting like waves of enemies without even having onslaughter or my armor on, just to see how much the thrill keeps you alive, and it really does keep you alive. I mean, of course I couldn't just walk into the fray like I do on this guy, but as long as I was like dodging around corners and stuff, even though I'd be taking the occasional hit, even a big hit sometimes, I was still able to survive the entire time and finish off all the enemies on UVH5 with no armor and no onslaughter active, just because of the thrill healing. So it really does heal you. I mean, it heals you the lower your health is. So that's how it helps keep you alive. It takes a while to heal the last half of your health bar, but the lower half is always healing up, like within just a couple seconds, to essentially make it so that you always heal enough to take another hit, basically, really quickly. So yeah, I'm very happy that I put that back on the build to just complete the super tankness to him. And then I also realized, like, I'm min-maxing him now too, because I realized with my class mod, it's like, you know what, I don't actually need to invest all 5 points into the rep kit duration one, thanks to how much I already have from the class mod. So I took a few points out of the blue tree actually for action skill duration, so I could further increase his melee damage a little bit more by getting Harbinger almost to max, as you see, increasing his melee damage more that way. So I really think this is, for the gear he has, which can still be improved for sure, but for the gear he has, it's a pretty min-maxed build for a super tank now. In the future, I mean, the priority now is really just trying to find ways to increase his damage as much as possible, but still maintain this same kind of setup. And I know, as we just saw, there are definitely exploits and ways to make it so even this pure tank build can one-shot a boss, I bet. I just have to find the right weapons and the right gun enhancement, really. That's all I really need. I mean, gun damage boosts my melee damage now, so I can focus my enhancement on guns thanks to that, and try to use the best damaging weapons that I can find, besides my melee, and then I can rely on that to, like, down a boss a lot quicker, while maintaining my invincibility tank build. Which would make it really OP if I could figure out a way to just because this isn't still consistent, but consistently, you know, kill a boss like that in under a minute on UVH5 and still be as tanky as I am. Once I can find a way to just do that consistently, then I know that this build is like S tier at that point in my view in Borderlands. I mean, there's so many exploit damage in this game. I just tell people all the time now, honestly, I would argue that tank builds like this actually are the best builds to make in Borderlands, because there's so many different ways to exploit damage to just one-shot a boss without having to go to a DPS build. Like, it's just, you don't have to invest much. But also, that's why I know it's going to get nerfed. Like, they're probably going to rework Berserk and Groundbreaker so they don't stack as much, which, by the way, if they ever do, I probably still won't change much on this guy, because as long as they still give bonus damage and bonus stored damage in some way, I know, because I see the basic stacks they give, and just the basic stacks with all my other melee damage buffs are what lets me, like, clear, like, fodder mobs and even some bad Rs mobs relatively quickly, as you see, because a lot of my kills don't even rely on getting maxed out Berserk, for instance, combined with the Groundbreaker exploit damage. That just lets me just seemingly randomly, because I'm also not trying to get it when I get it. So it's almost like randomly, then I'll just one-shot a super elite or a boss. It's just, okay. Yeah, I'm sure they'll get rid of that, but I mean, again, his mob clearing will still, I'm sure, still be almost just as good as it is here. And of course, he'll still be invincible unless they nerf that stuff. I hope they never nerf that stuff. But yeah, he'll still be invincible and be trivialized bosses in that way, because again, you can fight him a long way and never have to worry about dying, at least on this guy. But again, I want to try and figure out how to do that quicker. I'm hoping, and that's also why I really don't want to use what I'm using to kill the boss quick. I don't want to try to abuse this whole exploit of Groundbreaker and Berserk stacking, because it's clearly unintended, and I want to try to find some way to just max out like my raw like gun damage enhancement, my weapons, use the right weapons. I know I can get better weapons and enhancement with them to try and really stack up a lot higher gun damage, so that I can legitimately, without feeling like I'm exploiting, but actually legitimately kill bosses at least a lot quicker than I do now. And that boss was a blue moon, by the way. Again, it usually would take me like how long did it take me to kill him? Like 1 minute, I think. Yeah, usually when I did it last time on this same build, it took me like, I think, 4 minutes. So again, which again is much less than 10 minutes like it used to be. So I know this guy, with what I did to change him, just the basic stacks definitely from Groundbreaker definitely help his elite focus damage. But again, that'll always be a weakness on a pure tank build. But I'm hoping that I can try and find a legit way, at least a feeling of it being legit, to try and without a concern of the whatever I figure out of it being nerfed in the future, trying to find some way like that to increase his damage enough so that maybe he sheds boss killing to maybe 2 minutes or less, and then for that reason maybe all those really hyped up bad arse enemies with a ton of modifiers will also die quickly. So if I can ever figure that out, so it'll only be bosses that take time to kill, but also it'll be quicker in that way, that's when I think this build would be at its peak, as a peak pure tank, but also a tank that can clear mobs very quickly and then takes time to kill a boss, but doesn't at least take forever. And that would be the best version, I feel of a build like this.